I'm Steve.
And I'm Les.
And this is another episode of Tabletop Tastings. Another special episode.
Steve, we're doing a top 10 of our favorite whiskeys. Over the past year, we have done 33 board game whiskey pairings. And we're going to go back through the 33 different whiskeys that we've paired with board games to rate our top 10. So this is a top 10 list. Let's start off.
Of our last year of production. It's awesome.
It's fantastic. We've had so many good whiskeys. And I found this one a lot harder than choosing our top 10 board games.
Yeah.
Because every spirit holds something a little bit special.
Yeah, I agree. So it was funny because I got my top 10 pretty quickly, but then it was like, okay, what order do I go in? And then I'm like, oh, but what about this one? Or what about that one? I had to kind of change things a little bit. So it was fun doing, and let's get right at it.
So we'll start from number 10 and work up. Steve, would you like to go first?
Okay.
What's your number 10?
My number 10 was in one of our sip and plays, and it's probably because it just holds a special place in my heart. And so it is the Wayne Gretzky Signature Rye.
Steve,
I really enjoy it.
my number 10 was the Wayne Gretzky Signature Rye from our sip and play episode number 11.
Nice.
And we paired that with our playthrough of Marvel United. The Wayne Gretzky Signature Rye is special.
It is. So it's not the greatest rye I've ever had. It's not, you're going to go out and buy it, you're going to be like, this isn't the greatest rye I've ever had. However, it is a really good rye for the price. And it's just a little bit special to us because we know Tim and his team that have produced it. It's basically a glass to grain production of theirs. And it makes it so much more special. And honestly, it's just a really good rye. It's fantastically
The price point, your bang for buck on that is fantastic. Really, really good. And for me, my favorite aspect of this is the only whiskey I use when making old fashions now. I love the Wayne Gretzky rye for making old fashions. They're fantastic.
Yeah, I don't feel guilty about using it, right? I've gone through a couple of bottles since, and I get my ginger ale from the States. It's the Seagram's ginger ale. You can only get it in the States. We can't get it here in Canada. And I save it just for that, and I make a ginger ale and rye, and I love it. It's just so tasty. And like you said, the old fashions with it are so good. You don't feel guilty about using it because of the price point, but you can also just sip it.
Yeah.
It's that good. It's really good. Yeah, that's my number 10. That's awesome that you're number 10 too.
Excellent. Number 9.
Okay.
My number 9 is the Lafroig 10-year-old. And we did that in a sip and play episode number 13 and paired it with one of your favorite games, Catan, Cities and Nights.
Nice.
Lafroig, for me, it's one of the first scotches that I really enjoyed. I love the peaty smokiness of it. It's one of those things you can go years without trying it and go back to it, and it's immediately kicks in all those fond memories of the first time you tried it. I love Lafroig 10-year-old, and that's my number 9.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's one of my favorites as well. It is actually the first scotch that I ever had, which is kind of crazy, but it's awesome. It's one of my honorable mentions. It's one of my surprise ones because it did not make my top 10.
Excellent. So what did make your number 9?
Okay, so my number 9 is the Lagavulin Offerman edition, the Caribbean rum. And I love that it's got that smoky peatiness to it, but it's also like tempered by that rum. And it's just so unique and that I really, from my first sip to going back again to it, I've super enjoyed it. Yeah, it's got that Scotch flavoring to it, but it's tempered by that rum. And so whether you really like Scotch and you really enjoy that little bit of punch to your face that Scotch can give you, it's got that, but it doesn't last too long. And so I really enjoyed it. It's really smooth. It's really easy to sip. My number 9 is that.
So I really enjoyed that as well. It did not make my top 10, but my favorite aspect of that is the 45-minute video of the guy just sipping and drinking.
Nick Offerman for 45 minutes staring into the camera and just...
Yeah, they have some fantastic marketing behind that.
Yeah, he's a cool guy. Ron Swanson. I love it.
What's your number 8?
Okay, so my number 8 is the Talisker Special Edition. So we kind of, before we started doing our video, I actually had a different whiskey in this place. However, I went back to that Talisker. And for me, it was the saltiness. That kind of, it was almost like a salted caramel to me. It just has so much flavoring to it. I love the little bit of a story that goes along with it. And it's just so tasty. But I love that salt. The salt just kind of sticks there. I want to have some chocolate with it. It's one of their special releases of 2022. And they do a special release kind of every year. Sometimes Scotch can be almost polarizing, right? So it's got that, maybe it has a little bit too much peatiness. Maybe you don't like all that barley, that single malt. But when they do it right, and Talisker did it right for that 2022 release, it's just so tasty. Again, it's kind of unique, and it has you going back for it. If I could find it, I would love to grab another bottle of it because it's just so nice. So
Talisker's your number 8?
My number 8, yeah.
Excellent. My number 8 isn't actually a whiskey.
Oh.
My number 8 is what we've got right in our glasses here,
nice.
which is a rum. It's
Nice.
the Grander Isla Pete 13-year-old.
Nice.
And we played that through a full playthrough in pairing.
Yes.
Episode number 12, where we played Let's Go to Japan. This rum doesn't taste like a rum.
And that's not a knock to rum.
It's not a knock to rum. But my goodness, it's delicious. And it shares a lot of the same characteristics as a good Scotch or whiskey does.
Yeah.
Just the flavor that it packs into each drop is absolutely phenomenal. It's also the center bottle on the shelf back here because it stands out a little bit different.
We quite enjoyed that one.
So good.
That's nice. Yeah, so I agree that can be in your top 10.
Yeah, so
Very
good.
nice.
So that was my number 8. My number 7 is actually the Talisker Single Malt 11-year 2022 special release. It's one of the most beautifully illustrated bottles that I have ever seen. The production quality of that bottle is fantastic, and just the richness, the depth of flavor. It's like being in the ocean or next to the ocean. That saltiness that you talk about, that seaweed, the flavors are so rich and deep and intense. It's delicious. Absolutely love that.
Yeah, and again, it was one of those ones where I had to go back to it because I'll be honest, I kind of had forgotten about it. And then we started talking about it again, and I'm like, oh yeah, that one was really good. Because I've had Talisker, and I think we talked about it in our episode. Someone had a glass of Talisker, and I was like, oh, what? I can smell something. What is that? Oh, it's Talisker, yeah. That's a really great bottle. It's so nice.
We paired that with our playthrough of Bonsai. Number 7. What's your number 7?
Okay,
Steve?
so my number 7 is Barrel Craft Spirits Dovetail.
Nice.
So when I was introduced to Barrel Craft Spirits, we actually did one of our tastings with Southern Ontario Sippers. So I think we had 8 at that one, and it like stood out above the rest, like hands down amazing. There's another one that they make it's called Seagrass, and everyone goes like gaga for it. They lose their mind over the Seagrass, and it's good, but to me the Dovetail is just that much better. I love it. It's so nice and easy to sip. I actually took a sample of it with me to the zoo the other day and enjoyed it as we were walking around the zoo. I was out in nature, and it's such a nice bottle. So easy to drink. I love it. Dovetail from Barrel Craft Spirits. That's definitely going to be in my top 10.
Excellent. So that was your number 7. What was your number 6, Steve?
Okay, so my number 6, again, is a funny one because as I started getting into whiskey, I heard a lot about this company, Penelope. And I've heard all about this Penelope bourbon. We can't get good expressions of them up here in Ontario. And so this one was one of the Southern Ontario Sippers' actual barrel picks. And it is the Toasted. That Toasted is just so well-rounded. and so well balanced. I don't know how they'll ever make something like that again. It is so tasty. The toasted is tasty. It's basically how you gotta think of it.
You can't go wrong with
so
toasted.
good.
You can't go wrong with toasted.
It's another one of those ones where it sticks in my mind, and I really enjoyed it. And every time I go back to it, I'm like, oh yeah, that's why I enjoy it. It's just so good.
You talk about honorable mentions. Penelope didn't make my list, but both of their spirits that we tried over the past year, the Toasted and the Architect, are definitely
on there.
tasty,
Yeah, they're so good. Yeah, and again, like our top 10, it's the top 10 at what we're enjoying kind of at the moment and thinking back on our year. So the other ones are not necessarily bad. There's a couple that I could go without having again. However, the Penelope, so good.
So that was your number 6. My number 6 is something that I expect will show up on your list, but I could be surprised. Maybe it won't. My 6th favorite of the year is the Laws 4-grain cast strength. Laws in Denver, Colorado, they do something special there. And they're, as you've mentioned before, that grain to glass experience. They do everything in-house, and it's a very small operation, but the quality of the spirit that they produce is nothing short of amazing.
It is not small.
Laws, when you take a sip, it's like a little hug, a little hug for your taste buds, and it's delicious. I really, really enjoy the Laws bourbon.
Yeah, anything that they make is really, really good. They're one of the surprises for me when I did my list, because they did not make my top 10. I know.
Really? I thought for sure they would be on there.
I know, because I love every single one that I've enjoyed. It was one of those ones I got done my list and I'm like, I don't have Laws on my top 10. And again, it's not because they're bad, because it's almost one of my go-to. I go down into my basement little spot there where I have all my whiskey, and I'm like, okay, what am I going to enjoy in the hot tub tonight, or what am I going to have while we're watching a show or whatever? Laws is one of my go-to, and it's just so tasty. I love it. Laws is fantastic.
Just not enough. I'm surprised, shocked.
It's kind of funny. I know.
That was not on your list.
I know. I'm almost shocked and like upset at myself because it didn't make it. But there's just so many other standouts to me that we've had over the past year.
So that was my number 6.
Okay.
My number 5 was one you've covered already also, and that's the Barrel Dovetail. The Barrel Dovetail is delicious. I think my bottle I've got a tiny bit left in it, and I don't want to drink it anymore because I don't want to see it vanish and disappear. But the Barrel Dovetail is something special, and it's absolutely delicious.
Yeah, I agree. It's in the top 10, 100%.
So it did make my top 5. Steve, what was your number 5?
Okay, so my number 5 is actually what we're enjoying now. So I had a little bit further up on my list, and it is the Grander Rum. So Mr. DeHart and his love of rum, and just how he brought it to us, and just how unique this bottle is. And it's not a knock to it. It doesn't taste like rum. And again, I've been getting into rums a lot more. And so a lot of rums kind of have that little bit of funk to it, all that kind of stuff, which is kind of unique and it's interesting. There's nothing funky about it. There's really nothing wrong with it.
It's delicious.
It's just so delicious. It goes down nice and smooth. It's got that little bit of peat to it, but it's really tempered by the rum. It's almost perfection in a bottle. It was almost in my top 3. Was just how much I enjoy it, but it's definitely in my top 5. So number 5 is my Grander Rum.
Okay, so we're down to the top 4 now, and I know we're going to have some overlaps here. It's just, for me, the excitement is how close are we?
Where are they on the list?
Where are they on the list? So I am dying, Steve, to know, what is your number 4?
Okay, my number 4 is the Ardbeg Barbecue. I love it.
So that's my number 4 as well. The Ardbeg Barbecue. We did a playthrough and pairing, episode number 7, where we played Dwarf Romantic, the board game with that. Oh my goodness.
There's nothing like it. There's just, of all the whiskeys and everything that I've tried, there is absolutely nothing like it.
And I hate saying it's barbecue sauce in a bottle, because that sounds like that's not going to be tasty. But it is barbecue sauce in a bottle, and it's amazing.
Yeah, it is so good. I love the Ardbeg. Maybe it's a lot of marketing and all that. But they always have like a cool story to go along with things. And when we talked to them at Whiskey Wonderland, I'm like, okay, so what is this? What is this barbecue barrel? And he's like, well, I can tell you, but I gotta kill you. So, and that was more of an Irish accent. But anyways,
it was a terrible, terrible Irish accent.
So it should be Scottish, anyways. There's nothing like it. It is so unique, but it is also just so tasty.
I love it.
Every time we go back to it, I'm like, oh my goodness, this is so tasty. You're sitting around waiting for the barbecue to be done. I'm gonna pull off some spare ribs or some whatever brisket, and I'm gonna enjoy this barbecue. I've already enjoyed barbecue before because I've had some barbecue. It's so good.
It's something special, and it's something that it's one of those things, again, I don't want to drink the rest of what we have because I know it's very limited and it's going to be hard to find again if you can get it.
No, exactly. Maybe on secondary market, but that's the only place I could actually find because I was looking at trying to get a bottle for a friend or like as a gift, and I can't find it.
Well, I'm touched that you were thinking of me, Steve. But if you ever see a bottle of Ardbeg Barbecue on a shelf anywhere, buy it immediately. It is phenomenal.
Yeah. Oh, it's so tasty.
Yeah. That's exciting for me because it makes me wonder our top three, how close we're going to be in this list.
Let's see how close we are.
My number 3 is the Booker's Kentucky Tea Batch, which we played in our very first episode of Tabletop Tastings. We paired it with Archaeus Society, and that started the whole thing for us. And Booker's is one of those, every single time we go back to it, I'm just shocked and at awe at how much I love it.
It's so tasty. High octane, right? Like it's a heavy ABV on it. It's just so good.
So good.
So good. And even when we mixed it, so there's the whole story of Booker No and how he would have people over, and the way that he enjoyed his bourbon was to do like a 4-to-1 with water. And we're like, do we really want to almost waste it? Okay, but let's try it. And it was cool. It was like kind of like iced tea.
Like iced tea, like but with whiskey. Yeah.
With whiskey, yeah. And so it was just so tasty, so well-rounded. And I know some other people, I've seen other Booker expressions out there, and they kind of go up and down a little bit. But that one from 2022 is really, really tasty. It's so good.
So good. What was your number 3, Steve?
Okay, so my number 3, we got a little bit different here.
Yeah, I can see.
So I've got mine is the Valence and Mallet, Craig Alecky, 13-year-old. I can't say enough good things about it. It's one of those bottles that really stands out. It's got the sherry cask that it's been finished in. It's happiness.
Yeah, it's happiness
in a bottle. It's
yeah.
just so tasty. My top 3, I can't say that there's anything wrong with them. They have everything that would make a perfect whiskey perfect. And the guy from Valence and Mallet, David, he only selects like the best of the best. He gets that single cask that he's handpicked. That's what they bottle. Yeah. And it always makes me want to be like, okay, if I see Valence and Mallet on anything else,
it's going to be a quality.
I'm going to go and try and get at least a sample of it, if not grab the bottle and just enjoy it, because I know that someone who really enjoys their craft at barrel selecting knows what they're doing, because that 13-year-old Craig Alecky is just like to die for. It's so tasty. That's my number 3.
Fantastic. What's your number 2, Steve?
Okay, so my number 2 is actually the Booker's.
The Booker's
is my number 2. I absolutely love it. And every time I look at the bottle that we have here, I almost get a little bit of a tear, because
it gets a little lower every visit.
Yeah, I'm not going to be able to have it again. Maybe it's because, the first episode, that was a great game. It really is special. We only enjoy that bottle together. Yep. I love the Booker No story. I love the history there. And I love how they handcrafted it to just be delicious. It's great on its own. You can add some water. It's still really good. We did the 4-to-1 and it was still really good. It was like some iced tea. And that's my number 2. I love that bottle. I love the Booker box. I know people who have been collecting them for years are like, I don't like the box. I love it. Booker, no, thank you very much. I know that his son continues the legacy, and they've got other ones, Little Book and all that kind of thing coming out. They're doing a great job.
So knowing what your number 2 is, our number 3 list is identical.
Okay.
It's just in a different order. Because I know what your number 1 is going to be. My number 2 is the Cavalan Oloroso Sherry, which we paired with Terraforming Mars. That episode number 2 is what we played. Yeah. The Cavalan Oloroso Sherry, and without you saying anything, I know it's going to be your first one. It is something truly special. But the Oloroso Sherry is just divine. That is one bottle that, and same thing, we were only going through that one together as well, but it's so tasty.
Yeah,
I'll save
my comments for later. Yeah.
Number 1. So why don't you jump into that right now, Steve? Let's go with your number 1.
My number 1 is the Cavalan Oloroso Sherry. It is one of those bottles that, as I started kind of getting into whiskey, a friend of ours, Eric, who came to Gen Con with us, you've seen him in some of our videos, he'll be in some more of them. He gave me a little dram of it, and I literally had tears in my eyes. I'm like, I didn't know that whiskey could taste like this. Yeah. I absolutely love it. Now, the one that we have is actually a Bedford pick. So it's like a barrel select one. I picked up a bottle of the Oloroso Sherry that's just at our local LCBO, they call it in Ontario. And it is still really good. But the Bedford one is just like that couple of steps. It's not even just one level, it's like 2 levels above. And that's kind of the cool thing about barrel selecting, is that so you can have the same juice go into a barrel, and the next barrel right next to it could taste that little bit different. So it's got the main ingredients and everything's kind of same with that. It's just how it reacts to the wood. Yeah. And that, especially that Oloroso. So maybe that one was used a couple of more times for Oloroso Sherry. Who knows? But it's perfection in a bottle. It tastes so good. I love that Oloroso Sherry, and I love the single malt from Cavalan. Cavalan almost really could do no wrong, in my opinion. They everything that they release is just so tasty. You know, the honorable mention to the Cavalan Podium, it didn't make my top 10, but it's definitely not going to be at the bottom of my list. It's still going to be really high on my list because it's Cavalan. And it's just so tasty. They can get really delicious flavors out of like almost no time. Like Scotch has got to spend forever in a barrel, but because it's made in Taiwan, the Cavalan, it doesn't have to spend so much time, and it's going to grab all those flavors, and it's just going to be so good. If you can find Cavalan, pick up a bottle. You will not be disappointed.
Now, one of the things with Cavalan, though, is it is expensive.
Yes.
And this is where my number 1 is the Valencian Mallet, 13-year-old Craig Alecky, because there's so much flavor in that bottle. Yeah. And it was a bit pricier as well, but a fraction of the price of the Oloroso Sherry. Okay. But the Valencian Mallet has been my favorite whiskey of the past year. And that's one that I bought off a recommendation of a local store owner, Vishal, in Malts Grains in Alberta. And what a recommendation, because that bottle was one I knew nothing about it. And I cracked it open and had a taste, and I'm in love. This bottle is amazing.
Could you say you had tears in your eyes?
I could have. I don't get sad, but
no, it's
tears of joy.
Tears of joy.
Yeah. I definitely have an affinity for that bottle. And same thing, I'm down to just a little bit left. And that one, I was like, I don't know if I can share any more with Steve. It's pretty low. But that bottle is, by far my number 1. So our top 3, the Bookers, the Cavalan, Valencian Mallet, are the same, just slightly different orders. And it was a tough choice for me going between those 3 and choosing which one was my ultimate favorite. Yeah. Now, we've had a lot of good whiskeys over the past year. We've also had a few not so good whiskeys. So we're going to go through our 3 least favorite whiskeys over the last year. We're not saying they're bad. We're just saying out of all the whiskeys we've had, that these are the lowest ranked on our list. Steve, do you want to start off?
My lowest rank one, I'm going to say is bad, but I won't start there.
Let's go with number 3, though.
Okay,
What's your number
so
3?
my number 3 is the Toki Suntory whiskey. And again, so with this one, it's not that it's bad. It is an awesome starter.
Sure.
I enjoyed it when we opened it, but it's so simple. There's nothing there to it. There's nothing that makes me want to like, okay, I got to grab another bottle of Toki Suntory. And I know it's a huge seller because that's the only things that our local place, the LCBO, will bring. And it's always on the shelf. There's always one available.
So
I don't like it.
So for me, this bottle falls into that category of, if you ask somebody, do you like whiskey? And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, what's your favorite whiskey? And they say Crown Royal. Then I know that, they're not really into whiskey.
No.
If Crown Royal is your favorite whiskey, you're going to love Toki Suntory.
Sure.
It's reasonably priced. For the price point, it's relatively flavorful. It's just, we can argue that, that's okay. But it's just, there's nothing special about Toki Suntory.
I could spend my $50 somewhere else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is in my bottom 3, but it didn't make number 3rd.
Okay.
My 3rd least favorite whiskey of the year has been Two Brewers release number 40.
Okay.
And this
I figured this was gonna be in your bottom 3.
And this is one, so we did in our playthrough and pairing episode number 3 of the Fox Experiment, which is a game I really like, but filming of the Fox Experiment was one of the most frustrating experiences for me. We had so many technical issues, and then editing that was just a beast. It was just bad. The audio quality is terrible. But that's one where you revealed the whiskey, and I'm tasting it, I'm nosing it, and I'm trying my best to like say I enjoy this or I like it. But it was a struggle for me because right off the hop, it's like, well, I'm definitely getting coffee. And I mean, that's the whole thing of release number 40.
Yeah.
But I was struggling to find something that I enjoyed about it. And the longer I spent with it, the more, you can find some positive traits to it. Yeah. But it's one that I'm okay never going back and drinking that stuff again.
It's kind of funny. So when I opened that bottle and I honestly, those were my initial reactions to it, and they were honest. I loved it. I really, really enjoyed it. And I think it's because I've had some coffee expressions of whiskey, or I've had like coffee expressions of beer, and I've not enjoyed them at all. I'm like, my couple of favorite things. I got coffee and I got beer. I've got coffee, I've got whiskey. And every time it's been like, I don't really enjoy it. This one I really did enjoy it. However, I will agree with you. We've gone back to it, and I really did not like it. It didn't make my bottom 3 because of that. I'll go back and I will drink it again. However, I agree with you. It's not going to be for everybody, and it's so unique. Not necessarily in a good way that it's so unique.
And right? I mean, you mentioned you go back to drink it. I'll go back and drink it too. I'll drink anything.
Sure.
Well, maybe not. But I mean, this one, I'd go back and try it again. And even just to remind myself of what it tastes like, I'd happily go back to it. Yeah. I just, it's, out of everything we've tried, it's at the bottom, towards the bottom.
Okay.
So that's my number 3. My second least favorite whiskey of the year is Toki Suntory.
Okay.
And that's one where it was the 3rd episode we had filmed of our playthrough. My Island we played through. And I think you came out of the gate so strong. So episode number 1, you came out with the Cavalan.
Oh, yeah.
Episode number 2, episode number 1, you came out with the Bookers. Episode number 2, you came out with the Cavalan. And then episode number 3, you popped Toki on me.
Yeah, but you brought out My Island, which was so funny enough because I think those two things really did go well together.
The pairing was good.
The pairing was really good because they're both just really simple. And especially, like, we only played the first round of My Island, and so I feel like I'm trying to stand up for myself here.
No, the first round of My Island, though, is simple. It's so simple, plain, and basic. The magic of My Island comes from the longer you play with it, the more time you spend with it. So
which I would say get from
Toki Suntory pairs very well with the introductory chapter of My Island, but that's where it stops.
Exactly.
That's where it stops.
I agree with you. Yeah, that's why it's at the bottom of my list as well.
Your second least favorite whiskey, Steve. What do you
Okay,
got?
so my second least favorite, and this one is one of those ones that goes into the category of it's not bad, it's not terrible. I don't need to have it again, and it's the Craigenmore. So it's okay. It's a Scotch, and it's kind of like one of their basic offerings, and it's just that. It's a basic offering. I would not give it to someone and say, here's a Scotch. I want to get you involved in whiskey. Because I think that it would turn people off from whiskey. If you love Craigenmore, enjoy it, love it. That's good. I'm not saying it's bad. It's just as for all of the whiskeys that we've had and enjoyed, it's just one of those ones that's okay. Yeah, it was okay. It's not bad. It makes a really good rusty nail, but I wouldn't use it for much else.
Interesting. The Craigenmore I didn't mind too much at all, but I see where you're going with it.
Yeah.
What's your least favorite?
Okay, so my least favorite is just not a whiskey. And I really did not enjoy it at all.
I didn't even think of this one for the list.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, I think I even said it while we were having it that I did not enjoy it. And it
would have been the sake.
It's the Geki sake. Gekakin sake. It was terrible.
So sake's not for you.
Sake, that one I've heard. So Eric, our friend, he loves sake. He's had different ones. And I just grabbed, it was the only bottle that's available at our LCBO, at our liquor store. And terrible. I would never buy another bottle of it.
So I've had sake at various sushi restaurants, and I found the flavor behind this to be relatively on par with what my experience has been in the past. Now, that being said,
that makes me kind of sad.
I've never had a nice, like an expensive bottle of sake. I think the one we bought was only maybe $15 or something.
Yeah, I think it was maybe even 11.
It wasn't pricey at all.
Again, it was the only one available. I thought it would go well. I think the pairing was pretty cool.
Pairing was good. That's right.
Yeah.
My least favorite of the year was the Glencairn Treasures, which is what kicked off our sip and play episodes. We paired it with Jurassic World, The Legacy of...
That's funny because I really didn't even think about that one.
Really?
Yeah.
So for me, with the Glencairn Treasures, the biggest disappointment was the second that liquid left your mouth, the flavor was gone. There was no aftertaste of any kind. And for me, with a Scotch or whiskey, how do you not have flavor that lingers there in your mouth? It just dissipated instantly and was gone.
Yeah, I agree. It was an awesome pairing with that game.
It fit the game because the game was horrible.
The game was terrible.
Funko Pop did something wrong.
It sure did. It looks
game.
beautiful, but that's all it has for it. 1 star for that. But no, it's funny because I didn't really even think about that one, but I agree with it. So that's our top 10 whiskeys that we've paired over the past year. We hope you enjoy it. Let us know what you think. Comment, like, subscribe, send it to your friends, send it to your enemies. We don't care as long as someone's watching. That's all that matters.
Excellent. And if you've got a top 10 list from the past year of tabletop tastings, board game whiskey pairings, let us know in the comments. We'd love to hear from you. My name is Les.
And I'm Steve.
And this is Tabletop Tastings.
That it is.
Have a great day.
Yeah. And then we're going to bottom it off with our bottom three. That's great, though.
It was good.
I love it. We're going to go with it. We're going to bottom it.